Here is Keith Buckley from Every Time I Die. Thanks for joining
Woo!
us.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I thought this was just going to be a communal thing. I didn't realize I was going to have any sort of spotlight here.
Well, I got some questions, and
Okay.
I know there are a bunch of people here that'll have some questions for you, so it's all good. We're super casual. I guess to kick it off, I'm curious, from your perspective, what the Buffalo music scene was like for you guys in the 90s before you got really kicked off, and how you became ETID from the Buffalo music scene.
Um, yeah, I mean, it was really supportive from the get go. I feel like once I started going to shows in about 1995, that I was finding more people that I had things in common with than even at high school. So luckily, my parents were willing to drive me to shows, as often as there were shows. And yeah, it just became a family. I obviously hadn't been out of Buffalo yet, but I recognized that a lot of the people that were coming to Buffalo were from places like Toronto and Syracuse and New York City and Cleveland. So this was pre-internet, and everyone was just sort of trading tapes as they would come to shows, and people would show up selling merch and audio out of the trunk of their cars if they didn't have a table at the show. So I remember, seeing a lot of bands that passed through here, and I think it was really important. I think Buffalo was a really important, geographically located. I think it lent itself to being such a nucleus of different types of music, because as I got older and traveled more, I realized that Syracuse was full of heavy music. New York City, Long Island was heavy music. Toronto was more melodic underground music. Cleveland, that had bands like Integrity, was also very heavy, and they all sort of culminated in Buffalo, with the sound of Snapcase and Hourglass and things like that. These old hardcore bands that I used to listen to. So I think that we just drew off all of the influences that we had from other scenes, and not only that, but I'm in the band with Jordan, my brother, who plays guitar, and our parents. With being in Western New York, you go like 35 minutes down Clinton Street East, and you're in like a rural environment. So
That's literally where I live.
yeah, so we have like relatives in Franklinville and in Warsaw and things like that. So when we would go to their houses, they would just be playing Southern rock. It was just like Creedence and Allman Brothers and things like that. So those Southern rock influences, plus all these new modern hardcore influences, were really just on our minds all the time. And luckily, Buffalo was really welcoming to it, which was kind of surprising because we didn't take ourselves as seriously as a lot of bands did at the time. I think hardcore was seen as more of like this angsty suburban youth, disaffected child sort of center for ideas. But we just really wanted to have fun with it, and we've just kept doing it. So I feel like I think that because of the influence that all the people in Buffalo had from other scenes really lent themselves to giving us the chance that we got, which we're very thankful for.
Great answer. I love that. What venues were your favorite around here? Like before you
Man,
guys broke out of Buffalo, what do you think of? What small venues do you think about playing still?
there was Kenzie's in Lockport, which was hugely seminal to us as a band and just as kids going to shows. But I remember one time I went to a show and Kenzie's wouldn't allow the show to happen. So myself and a few friends of mine, for some reason, took the bull by the horns, and we found a hotel around the corner that had a area on the first floor with a stage, and we're like, hey, can we bring a band here and they can play, and there's a bunch of kids outside waiting to see them. And like, yeah, okay. So then we just moved the show to this new hotel. I don't even remember the name of it, but then they started having shows there like regularly, and we're sort of competing against Kenzie's. And it was really because we were just like, we don't have a place to play. Where can we put this band up that's traveled to play in Buffalo? So that happened, and then basement shows started getting pretty big. And I know that every time when I practiced space in Cheektowaga, had a few shows in the basement. Bands like Coalesce played there, which is like a hugely influential hardcore band. I had shows in my basement when I was living on Linwood. A band called Drowning Man played there, which in the hardcore scene was that's one of like the name dropping things that I still use is like this band actually played in my basement because they were just so like they were like a spark and they influenced so many other bands but then just vanished. So they played in my basement and there was the Backstage Pub in downtown Buffalo right across from Marcella's. Like I think it's like a
Yeah,
store or something or maybe a restaurant now. That was big. And then there was of course Showplace Theater, which was monumental, but
yeah, and that just opened back up in this last year,
yeah,
so that's pretty awesome.
I don't know what's going on with Showplace Theater. It keeps opening and then closing and under new management and then remodeling. But it's strange. I just always, I never liked the fact that it was so far out of the city limits and it wasn't a very accommodating neighborhood. People are always getting parking tickets from the bank across the street, things like that. So kind of sucked to go see a show there or to have that be the representation of Buffalo. But I think now that Town Ballroom is honestly one of the best venues we've ever played because of the way that it's tiered. So people, everyone can see, everyone has a great time. If you don't, for some reason, want to watch the band, you can go out to the bar where it's kind of quieter. I mean, these are things that like, as a kid, you don't understand, but as you get older, you realize like, hey, I might actually want to see the band, first of all, with my own eyes. And then I might want to not like get sweaty and knocked around. So I'm going to go watch on the big TV in the bar out front. And it's such a beautiful building anyway. So, I mean, it has it all for everybody. I love that venue.
Me too. I don't want to dominate questions. So if anybody has like anything you want to jump in at any time, either raise your hand physically or use the Zoom raise your hand feature or whatever.
There's a Zoom raise your hand feature?
There is, yeah.
Really?
Yeah. Anybody want to demonstrate the raise your hand feature?
Oh, Bob.
Yeah. Maybe only I can see it. I don't know.
You just got to text Bob and then he'll raise
yeah.
Oh,
so did you?
Nice.
Oh yeah, there you. Okay, yeah. Pauly has the thumbs up. So it sounds like you guys were like pretty DIY in the beginning.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, we still kind of are.
Yeah.
We don't have a tour bus. We don't even own a tour van. We just rent. We do own a trailer that we pull. You know, we're still practicing in the same place where we started in Cheektowaga next to the airport. We don't really have a huge crew. Like when someone's saying that Paul knows how to take down a drum set in 6 minutes, like that's impressive because I see other bands that have drum techs and I'm like, why don't we have a drum tech? Why, you know, it would make our lives so much easier. But I guess we're just, you know, we know that even though we've been around for 20 years, it's never really a given how long music is going to last. And especially now with this pandemic, it's gotten taken away. One of the things we always thought was that, well, music is the one thing that really can't be imitated by anything sort of virtual or animatronic or anything. You know what I mean? Like there's really no way to replicate the experience of a live concert. But what we never planned for was that live concerts would just be completely obliterated. So now that we're in this pandemic and we're realizing like, we don't know when we're going to go back on the road again. It was, in retrospect, it was kind of good that we were kind of cutting corners and not bringing out unnecessary text and things like that in order to like enhance some image because now we are waiting this out. You know, we're comfortable financially for a little bit, but it's only because we spent 20 years, like I said, not riding in tour buses and not, you know, hiring superfluous crew to, you know, make my coffee in the morning, you know, or to like vibe tech and just be there to hang out and have a good time. We never did any of that stuff. We always did it ourselves. So we were kind of like squirreling away our resources for a time like this, which we never would have imagined even arrive.
Yeah. Well, that it's crazy. We're all finding ourselves in this ridiculous financial situation. So it's, I don't know if it's scarier or more comforting to hear that that like people like you are in the same situation that we are. Like, geez, like how are we gonna make a living if live music doesn't come back? It's insane.
Yeah, it's crazy, and I mean, in a sense, all of our eggs were in the one basket. I mean, we all dropped out of college to start touring, and you know, we all quit our jobs to start touring, and we thought that was the best way to go because then we could devote more time and energy to it. But in a situation like this, we're like, man, we don't really have any other talents. Like I was just saying before the call started that I got a PC because I have like a Twitch stream. That's like my only source of income right now is like if people want to watch me freak out while I play video games. That's it. That's all I can actually do. So
that's great.
it's trying times. Yeah.
What games do you play?
Modern Warfare. I do a lot of like Call of Duty stuff. A lot of I used to play a lot of horror games, but then it got kind of embarrassing just screaming in fright in front of people that were watching me. So I kind of
That's great. Paula, did you have your hand raised?
No, I was just showing you it can be raised. I think you're
Okay.
the only one that sees
I might.
the
Yeah, I
hand
think only I can see
I
that.
know.
but-
I saw your thumb
raise.
up.
You saw the thumbs up, but
Yeah, but that's different than the hand raised. Yeah.
go down into the participants. You can, go to your name and raise your hand so the moderator can see it.
Yeah, but Tom, I see right now that Tom has his hand raised. Yeah. Do you actually have a question, Tom, or are you just demonstrating your hand raising skills?
Yeah, a little of both.
All right. Oh, you're muted now.
I'm just
There you
going
go.
up with the hand raising and the muting.
There you go.
Sorry about that. I watched, I think serendipitously, Keith, because I'm not sure I knew you were going to be on this meeting today, but maybe for some reason, I think I watched a video of you guys today.
Oh, nice.
That was really interestingly, can you talk, and I can't, it had a lot of scenes from Buffalo in it.
Oh yeah, map change.
Yeah, and could you talk a little bit about that? And I was just like, wow, what great production on that video. And obviously you guys did a good job with all the sets and the, the stuff in it and the people even. I thought, oh my God, look at all these different people. So could you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, we had a director friend from Philadelphia that we've kind of known for a little bit just from touring, but he really wanted to direct a music video for us. So this was just kind of like in the air. It was a nebulous idea before we even recorded the record. And then we did the record, Low Teens, and then Map Change became like one of the songs that we really wanted to sort of feature. So he asked if he could have a shot at it. And he asked for ideas, and I was just like, it just feels like a song about Buffalo. It's about the winters here, and it would be really nice to just sort of capture that feeling. So he came from Philadelphia, lived in Buffalo for 2 weeks, and just filmed almost 24 hours a day, every day, going into the place. I don't even recognize a lot of the places in that video. And I've lived here my entire life, but he really, really went at it, trying to show how beautifully deindustrialized Buffalo was, and sort of the idea that the people here, aesthetically it might not be pleasing, but there's so much fulfillment here for so many people, and that contrast was I think he did an extraordinary job. So yeah, that was one that when he showed us the footage, I couldn't believe it. I was just so proud that he captured Buffalo in that light. So that was our love letter to Buffalo.
Yeah, very nice. I just wanted to mention one other thing, because you mentioned the bank across the street from the Showplace Theater, and I've been driving by it a lot over the quarantine kind of, and it truly is the world's ugliest bank. Usually banks,
terrible.
Banks are usually, they're relatively well maintained, first of all, because they kind of have a landscaping budget and stuff.
Yeah.
So, but that building, that bank, it's a Bank of America now at least,
Yeah.
is the ugliest bank that exists in the North America.
Yeah, the fact that it just cuts the road in half, and it detour, if you don't want to keep going down Military, then you're cut off, and you're almost spun around kind of a little bit without you even noticing, and so you're just facing the water, and then you have no idea where you are. People in Buffalo just get lost visiting Showplace Theater on that street. When we would play shows, we'd get calls and people I have no idea where I am, and we'd be I don't know where you are either. Describe what you see. And they'd be the water. I'm all right, you guys are way too far away from here right now. So yeah, it ruins the congruity of the travel from north to south. But yeah, that's for another time.
That's great. Oh man. So I want to hear more about your transition from local band to regional band to national band to international band. What was it like? I guess logistically, but also personally for you, that realization of oh God, we're not just a local band anymore.
I think if that realization ever happened, it was only 2 years ago. But the whole process has been paint drying, in that you're just there and you're doing what you love to do. And eventually things are happening for you, but we've never been given like these leaps forward where, we got our first record deal. I mean, we started off on a record label from Canada called Goodfellow that, very independent record label. And then that contract ended and we got signed to Ferret, which was a little bit bigger. And then that ended and that we got signed to Epitaph, which is a little bit bigger. But the whole time you're doing it, you're not paying attention to that shit. You're just like, I just want to play music and be on tour. So we kept doing that. But I think that the turning point for me mentally where I was like, okay, you know what? I actually, humility is great and everyone should have humility, but you should also accept some responsibility if possible. So when we started doing the Christmas shows at Riverworks, that's when I realized that this is a thing now. Like this is hopefully going to become a staple of Buffalo, and I want it to be, and we all want it to be. So we need to start, maybe interacting a lot more with the promoters and the designers and the merchandisers and the bar and the restaurant, because this is what we want to bring people into Buffalo, as many people as possible every single year. And, in order to help the city's commerce, in order to help, the restaurants, the tattoo shops, anything the people that travel would want to do when they come to Buffalo and experience it. So, it's fine to be humble and stay like, oh, we're just local guys. But the fact is that now there's people traveling from Australia, from Sweden, from, all over the country to come to the show, to come to Buffalo. So we have a responsibility to make sure that they have a good experience with it, and
That's
that they
amazing.
can fully, appreciate the culture that Buffalo has. So I think it was really, probably the first time we put on a show at Riverworks that we're like, all right, this is now our thing now.
It's legit.
And we have to be like real about this.
Yeah. How many nights did you guys do to the season last year?
We did 2 nights last year, which is the first time we'd ever done 2 nights. And we headlined both nights. The year before that, we had just done the 1 night. We had, we were in the talks to do it again. Maybe not headline both nights this year, but just headline the second night and have like a real headliner the first night. And then this happened. So now,
Who knows?
Hopefully, maybe it'll be like a Christmas in July sort of thing of 2021, but we'll see.
Oh.
Yeah.
Paul's got a hand raised.
Yes, this time I actually raised my hand instead of showing off. So, Keith, when you're touring internationally, and I hear you saying that you want to promote our local area, which is great, because Buffalo, we are now in a resurgence, and that's one reason I love doing what I'm doing, helping everybody out, just to keep that resurgence and keep that energy going. But when you're in other towns or in other countries and you say, hey, we're a band from Buffalo, what are the other people thinking about that when you're out there?
It's indescribable how it feels to be in Finland, say, and you're about to go on stage and there's a "Let's Go Buffalo" chant. It is
great.
It's
That's wild.
It's mind blowing. So just the "Let's Go Buffalo" chant has almost become like what people do before we play, no matter where we are. It's unbelievable. Love it so much.
Awesome.
So,
That's super cool.
It's very cool. And
Ethan's got a hand raised too.
So I had a sort of longer-winded question about the business model of touring nowadays.
Mm-hmm.
I, as a band who is like very new to touring, one of my mentors in the music business, Bumblefoot, he said, you guys should do a couple bigger tour packages with his band and with some other bands. We're looking at like Arc Echo and, Periphery, those, whatever those guys are.
Yeah.
Of sort of, instrumental prog metal, all that fun stuff. And his thinking was, if kind of similar to you, like tour very low budget with no tax, there's no label, everything's independent, so you handle your own finances. And kind of the investment cost of doing some of those tour packages, some of which would be buy-ons, you would theoretically recoup that faster because you are being pushed to bigger audiences, to bigger, and it was starting to show dividends. And then of course, COVID and but we sat down and he showed us some numbers that were crunched, and it like made sense. And I want to see like what is your perspective on that? If you guys did something like if you felt like you did a you did a tour package or like Ozfest or something, and you felt like, oh, there was a big, sort of artificial growth or something. Like, what is your stance on that kind of side of the industry?
We will take a direct support tour over a headline tour any day of the week, because when there's, I mean, if you're insisting on headlining, that's really just an ego thing, I mean, and we don't have that. So we've been around for 20 years. We know where we're well received, and we know what kind of sales or whatever we do in certain areas. But that's just kind of like a locked in thing, and then it's a very self-serving cycle where it's like, well, where is anyone growing from this? It's just sort of like refreshing the same vibe that you set from year 8, and now we're in year 20. So we direct support it with Taking Back Sunday. We direct support for, I mean, in 2005 we direct supported for My Chemical Romance, who hadn't even really started yet, but we're just like, these are different fans. Like, that's what we want to do. We need to get different fans. So I think it's extremely valuable to keep your ego off to the side, understand that there's going to be a band that's going to put you in front of new people, and then the next time you come around, you can headline, and maybe those people will be back there to see you specifically. You just never know. I mean, the tour that we do with Taking Back Sunday, on paper doesn't sound like it would work out because we're a lot heavier, and our fans are different sort of demographic than theirs, but it was one of the most successful tours we've ever done, that actually culminated in Buffalo on August 19th of like 2016 or 17, I can't remember. But yeah, it's just one of those things where it's just going to put you in front of people that wouldn't normally come to see you, until they fall in love with you, and then they come back. So it's extremely beneficial. And if the band's good enough and big enough, they take care of you very well. I mean, we've had bigger bands take us on tour where the headlining band's tour manager was so active in our lives that we didn't need a tour manager. We just tour managed ourselves, because he did everything, and we didn't need one. So I think it's really good to keep doing that, and we will happily take a support tour anytime.
What's the difference? Sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. When you guys were a younger, maybe less established act, did you ever take a buy-on, or do you personally?
Yeah, we took a buy-on for Ozfest in 2004. Luckily, we had just signed to Ferret Records, so that the timing worked out, because part of the signing with them was that they would buy us onto Ozfest. That was the worst tour the worst tour we've ever done. But, it was a very strange, being baptized by fire sort of thing, because we had never really done a full summer tour like that. So we were just kind of out of our element, which was important in understanding. It helped you develop, like, well, I don't like these I don't like these bands. Like, that's not the style of thing I want to do. I don't like how angry some of their fans are, so that's not really anything I want to appeal to. You use those to sort of find yourself. But yeah, a buy-on is important, I think, if it's a whole touring pack, like a big touring package, and it's being promoted as such. Before you buy on, you need to find out what their marketing budget is, I guess I would recommend. Because if they're not putting a bunch of money into the marketing, then there's no point in buying onto it. Sucks, but that's what it comes down to, unfortunately.
Helpful, thank you.
I was curious what the difference is financially for taking a support spot on a tour versus headlining a tour.
It's not. It can be drastic, but like I said, as long as you can do it, bare bones, without a bus. I mean, the cost of a bus versus the size of a van is just so astronomical that, like, even if you take a van and you're paid the minimum that you've ever made, you're still going to come home with some, on the upside, because you're not paying for the gas to move this enormous machine. And with a bus, you have to pay a driver, and you have to pay for the driver's hotel room. So these are all costs that are avoided. And instead of looking at it like, well, how little am I getting each day? You start looking at it like, how much am I saving each day? And that becomes really important in figuring out what you want to set yourself up as. And I know that a lot of bands we've toured with bands that 4 people. They showed up with 2 buses, you know, and it's just like that's just a presentation thing. They like the idea of rolling into town on tour buses, you know, and like it's some sort of like entourage of a foreign king, you know, coming into like a new city. It's like nobody cares. Like that's not important. Put on a good show, you know, make sure you have the energy to do it, and then suck it up and finish the tour. So that's what we've always done.
Hello to our tiny guest and our naked cat guest.
Oh, so that's like yeah.
Gary did the cat, yes.
Is it shaking? No, it's being pet. I thought it was like shaking rapidly. I didn't know it was.
So, Keith, out of every place you played, what has been your top 5 favorite venues and the top 5 worst venues?
It's hard to say like what my favorite venues are, because there's been amazing rooms that you play in, but the whole experience outside of it is bad. For instance, I love Prague is like the best city in the world that we've ever been to, but the show was lousy. Moscow, the venue and the show were amazing, but like it was freezing and the sun never went down. So like it just sort of, it has to be a perfect blend of like venue plus promoter plus crowd plus, you know, environment around it. But we played in Manila when we went to Southeast Asia, and this shouldn't have happened, and it never happened again, and didn't happen before, but we played, and you would think that we were the Beatles. Like we had, our tour manager was luckily at the time like a 300-pound guy that was very massive, that could have been a professional bodyguard, and he had to like carry me like a baby like because the people, they don't have a lot of live music there. They're so rabid about it. They're just so insane. So I don't remember anything about the show itself and the set and how well we played, but I just remember that experience of seeing how important it is for people to get new music like that. And it was, it was extraordinary. South Africa was great because we got to see, you know, they took us like around and we got to go on like wildlife tours and stay in like this little villa where you were woken up by lions roaring, like wild lions, and just the whole experience was just extraordinary. But
Awesome.
I mean, I think that in the States, just aside from those bucket list experiences, I mean, honestly, like I said, Town Ballroom is amazing. I love playing in Toronto. California is always very good for us too, and San Francisco for sure.
All right.
Yes.
I'm curious. I want to go back farther again because obviously that's where we all are. So I'm curious about how in '98, whatever it was, what was your key? What was the key to you looking back for getting label attention and giving, like, I know you said there wasn't ever that like one big launching off moment, but where'd the labels come from? What was that process?
It was doing anything to play a show. Anything. Didn't matter. If you got asked to play a show, you played a show. If you didn't get asked, you show up and you volunteer to play a show. Like that's happened to us plenty of times where we just pull up with gear and we're like, hey, if you need another band. I'm like, oh yeah, sure. Okay. So, you know, then we would play at like, I can't remember the name of it. It was a bar downtown Jesus. I'll remember later, but it was around the corner from like where the Mighty Taco is. Used to be a bar, or used to be a show venue, then it became a bar. But anyways, it's just showing up and just being willing to do anything. I mean, and this was pre-internet, so, you know, you'd get a call. I remember one time we got a call. It was like 10 o'clock at night saying, hey, do you guys want to play in Virginia tomorrow night? We're like, yep. Got in the van, rode down to Virginia, stole gas on the way because we had no money, played the show and drove home. We literally drove out to California to play one show and drove back. So, I mean, that's it. We would just do anything to play. And you just like, I mean, it comes back to the ego. Like you have to let it go and just do whatever it takes. And it's a lot easier when you're younger. I mean, we were like 19, 20. I can't imagine piling into a van to go out to California and back as a 40-year-old guy with a wife and a kid. But when I was younger, that's all I wanted to do. So we did it. And we played everywhere. We played record stores. We played restaurants. I remember we played this place in Canada that was literally a seafood restaurant where people were sitting down at tables. And we played on stage, and it was super uncomfortable. But
yeah, how did
It was
How'd that
terrible.
go? With
Awful experience. But you get through it. We played one time. We were in Oslo one time, and we had a show get canceled on us. So we just went to the internet. We're like, hey, can anybody know where we could play? We're here. So they got us. They rented the stage in the middle of like a carnival setting. It was like this temporary like amusement park that was set up in Oslo, and we played in the gazebo. And there's families walking around. It's in the middle of the day, and we're playing like heavy music. It was, it's hard to really understand like how damaging that could be if you don't have a good outlook on it. But you just chalk it up to experience.
How long did you guys have other jobs for?
I had other jobs for about 3 years into it. I was working at Spot Coffee. I was in my master's program at UB, so I was also teaching high school. And then I graduated from that, and I got a job offer to be a teacher in Boston, or I could pursue the band. So I just kept going with the band. So
Awesome.
I pretty much undid everything I did in college, and my teaching certificate ran out a few years later. Oh well.
Oh well. Who
Yeah.
knows it?
Yeah. That was my parents' money. It wasn't mine.
I could keep firing questions, but if anybody else wants to jump in, I know Phil, you had some stuff.
Yeah, I'll ask the question. So I've had the honor of seeing your band Soul Patch a couple of
Oh
times.
yeah, thank you very much.
I really enjoy it a lot. I like the video you guys did with Paul. It was
Nice.
really fun. We turned that on a lot.
Yes.
Well, I was wondering, like, personally, and I know Sarah too. Like, we're both at a point in our in gigs where we're still playing cover gigs because we have to.
Mhm.
We need to make some money. I was wondering what it's like to go from playing huge concerts all around the world, and then even though I'm assuming that you play in Soul Patch right for fun, right? I mean,
Oh,
that's
yeah,
the
yeah.
obvious answer. So,
Yeah.
it's like, is it different to? How does it feel to like go from playing huge places for huge crowds all around the world to coming back now to playing like a small dive bars in Buffalo?
I love it. I mean, the energy in a small dive bar is kind of why we were so adamant about sticking with Every Time I Die, because that's where it started. That's an unmatched energy, and even now, if we play larger venues, we still try to keep it that way, at a respectful level, for people's safety. But we'll make the barricades, we'll make the promoter take the barricades down, send the security staff home. Just, we try to understand that the people that are at the shows are there and they're going to take care of each other. They don't need an outside police force or any sort of security people to come in and monitor, because we got this. This is a community. We're taking care of each other. We're looking out for each other. So that small bar energy has been very important in the way that we handle touring and performing. But Soul Patch was, I mean, it was like just kind of like me and Steve and Joe, our the guitar player and bass player, were just sitting around drinking one night and talked about how much fun it would be to play at a bar while people were. It was essentially, we wanted to do in Buffalo what we had done at the seafood restaurant in Canada. Like, well, we just want to be in the background. Like, we don't want to have a show. We just want to play music. Other people can enjoy in the background of other things. And then it unfortunately got a little out of control, and it's not like that anymore. But it is still very important that we maintain that small concert energy. So that's why Soul Patch is so rewarding for me.
I know a band like fans of Every Time I Die are definitely not strangers to being in like small, I'd say Mohawk place kind of environment.
Yeah.
Obviously,
yeah.
So that's cool that you guys try to bring that to a.
Oh yeah, totally. I mean, Mohawk's great. The Icon was always great for us too. Strange setup, but yeah, I mean the places in Buffalo coming up were just so varied. I mean, like I said, the basement scene at like Custer Street, that was big for the punk rock development. But yeah, Buffalo's always just had such respect for each other, and it's never felt really competitive. It's always felt very warm, and had it not been, we probably would have given up very early on. But it's because of this place that we're still doing it.
Where did you find the lineup for Soul Patch? Like, I know Jeff and Jess both pretty well. So did you know them before?
Yeah, well, I actually went to high school with Jess.
Okay.
but so it was Joe and Steve and I that decided to start the band, and then Nico, the other guitar player at the time, was just kind of like he knows how to play the guitar and he's not doing anything ever, so like he'll be fine. And then Joe knew Jeff, and then Jeff's an incredible musician.
He's wildly good, yeah.
Yeah.
And that's pretty cool for us, honestly. Like I've played shows with Jeff and with Jess before, you know. So that's pretty cool. It's, you know, honestly, like people like me and Phil grew up listening to Every Time I Die, but then it's super cool to see you come back and play shows with people who are colleagues of ours. So that's pretty fun.
I honestly feel like Jeff is like the Renaissance man of the Buffalo scene. Like he's just he has so many different things going, and he's so passionate about everything. So I really respect him, and his drumming, and just being in a band with him has been a great experience because he's also very professional. You know, he loves Buffalo, and he doesn't play outside of Buffalo a lot, but he is not like unworldly in his approach to music. Yeah. He's very understanding that, like, you know, that you can't just be a stubborn musician that only wants to play locally and doesn't care about the performance or doesn't care about much. Like, he's very professional, and the way that he approaches music is incredible. So having him is extraordinary. And
I don't think I know a musician in Buffalo that plays with more people.
Oh no!
Plays with more bands than Jeff does. It's wild.
Yeah, this is great because he's sort of absorbing all these different styles, and he's capable of changing, you know, his approach to the song. So yeah, he's been great.
For sure.
And then Jess was we actually just started. We wanted to have Jess do one song, and then it was like, oh, that was amazing. Maybe we should do 3 songs. Maybe we should do 3 songs, and it just kind of snowballed to what it is now.
Yeah, she's great too.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
I know. Again, I can keep firing questions, but I don't know if anybody else has any.
I actually, I have to get my kid. We usually read 3 books as the sun is going down, like right there. So I know it's going down. That's part of our COVID routine. So I don't want to bum her out.
Family first, brother.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just so hard because she's not in daycare, so we're trying to like at least keep her on a routine where she has something to look forward to every night. So, all
right, what's your time cutoff? How much do you have to go right now?
Whenever you feel comfortable letting me go.
All right, just a couple more questions. You know, we have one hand raised. Ethan has his hand raised right now.
So, you always hear when someone's asking, you know, like an established tour band, they're like, "What's your big tip for the road that you might not think of?" And everyone's always like, "Oh, bring 50 pairs of socks." Yeah. So, like, aside from the obvious stuff, what's something that people might not think about that you, in a 20-year career, have hit and could share?
As far as like what to pack, or just a mentality to have,
like any kind of
general
tip
advice
that you picked up on from how much of a veteran you are here, beyond like the obvious stuff like pack 50 pairs.
Yeah, I think the probably the best piece of advice I got, that once I heard it, I applied it to every situation, is do not expect other people to react the way you would react to anything. You know, you can't, when you're approaching the situation, you're facing it as a band, even though you're a very tight-knit unit, you can't expect your bandmates to handle everything the way that you would handle it, because you're still individual human beings. And the less you feel like you should all be doing things the exact same way, the more tension is going to be relieved, the more free you're going to feel, the happier you're going to be. So, yeah, you just got to keep in mind that everyone does their own shit, and you absolutely cannot expect them to do what you would do in any situation. And the sooner you realize that, the easier it gets.
That's super
helpful. I like that. Yeah, I like that a lot.
Yeah, that would have really helped some.
Yeah.
I was just gonna say that. Like, could have saved my butt in a couple of former bands.
Pride is a very, especially when you're taken out of your environment and you're put on the road with a bunch of people that, you know, you all have the same vision, but that pride is gonna tie a bunch of knots in it that don't need to be there. So just kind of respect each other's expectations.
Kind of tangentially off that. I found, like, for me, the reason I asked that question, or the reason that I like that response so much, is because when we were on my last run, we were in New York. When we rolled up to the venue, Gramercy, like pretty early, but you know, like it's New York, and you know, shit happens.
Yeah.
So I asked the guys. I said, hey, you know, like, I'm not your mom, I'm not your babysitter, but I was the tour manager on that tour because we're a small time. and I said, can we try to stay in walking distance and not get on the train? And it became this huge thing because they're like, why can't we get on the train? Well, what if the train has delays? Like, what if we
Right.
get mugged? Like, I want to play a show tonight. So
Yeah.
like, how do you feel in terms of that organizational thing, either with or without a tour manager? Like how safe do you play it day of show, with like proximity to venues and all
Oh,
that?
I play it so safe. I play it so safe. Like on Warped Tour, we would, there'd be times where we'd wake up and find out we're playing at like 6:50. I'd get up at 8 o'clock. I know the route from the bus to the stage, from the bus to the kid. Like I map it all out, and then I just wait. I mean, I am so safe with it. But other people are more freewheeling, and you can't like impede on their ability to explore the area and to make touring what they need it to be in order for them to stay sane. I mean, if they need to explore and get fresh air in order to continue touring, then you have to let them do that. And then if they miss the show, that's a whole different discussion. But you just have to trust that they're going to be back at the time. Which sucks because there's a lot of people that aren't trustworthy. But cross that bridge when you get to it. Don't anticipate it. It's not going to help anybody.
Awesome, thank you.
The other thing Phil and I were talking about earlier, I would love if you have a couple minutes to just hear briefly about your writing process. We were talking about how much we love the poetry of your lyrics, and I'm curious how often you write, what your writing process is like.
I'm always writing, not necessarily songs or lyrics, but I mean the notes that I keep are consistent. It's not just strictly for a record. Just I'll write things down that I think of, that I see. But then when it's time to get into album writing mode, and the guys always write remotely. I'm never involved in the writing process of music because I trust them to do what they do best, and I don't want to get in the way. But then they'll finish the song, they'll demo it, and they'll send it to me, and then I'll just sit with it and listen to it enough times that I have it memorized, and then just kind of try to forget it, I guess. Just try to like not think about it and just carry on with my day. Few things will pop up here and there in relation to it, and those are the things I'll take note of. And then when I think I've had enough of those like few puzzle pieces in place, then I'll sit down and try to get the bigger picture, just honestly just by scrolling through my old notes and seeing if anything fits, what works thematically, as far as cadence. So it really is like I'm starting to paint a picture by drawing the bones first, and then it just becomes more thorough and more elaborate. But it's never really like, okay, now I'm sitting down and now I'm going to start to write. It's a process that just is always
That is
happening.
interesting that you write totally separately from them.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that kind of makes sense to me with the style of your lyrics, that it's like a very secluded internal process for you. That like
It's also very I think beneficial, because if I were to have a say in the music, then I would probably subconsciously try to influence the tempo or the timing of parts in order to fit my lyrics. But that's not what I want to do. Like I want them to write the song that they feel comfortable with, and give it to me, and then I look at the song without lyrics as like a crossword puzzle. Like, okay, there's a lot of things here, but I have to fit them in. Like I have to make them fit. So it makes me sort of really chisel it away and make sure that it's only the best words, that it's only the best sentiments, that it's only the best melodies, because I can't tell them to change a part to accommodate me, because I don't speak that language. So it's really, I mean, it's worked for us. Nobody has any complaints here in the camp. So it's been pretty good.
very cool.
Thanks.
We got a raised hand from Tom.
Hi, Tom.
Yeah, Keith, I don't want to keep you from your daughter, but just has the writing process always been that way from way back when you were in high school, or
Yeah.
did you evolve in some way?
No, it's always been that way.
Yeah.
And there's been moments where we've been on like on tour in Europe or something where we just have to write because the deadline's coming up. So we are around each other. And as much as I don't want to intervene in the process, where I have had to say like, hey, what if you did this many times or cut this in half? But that's never because I'm taking into consideration lyrics. It's strictly because I'm thinking of just people's attention spans or the pacing of the song. But yeah, they just have such a good communication, all of them, and the way that they talk a language that I don't speak very well. I have no idea about guitars. I have no idea about drums. I honestly, I wish I did, but I think that the fact that I don't is what makes me trust them so much more and trust myself so much more. So I couldn't talk to them about it if I wanted to. This is good. They probably don't want to do it.
I think my last question is, do you still get out and see live music in Buffalo when you're here?
Oh, yeah, all the time.
Yeah?
Yeah. I mean,
Who do you,
not right now, but
well, obviously not right now, but yeah, who do you like around town right now? Who do you like to get out and see?
So the last show I think I actually went to was it was at the Rec Room, and it was a band called Operators that were coming in from Canada, and it was a very poorly attended show, unfortunately, because they're that. Have you ever heard of the band Wolf Parade? Like they're a Canadian band, yeah. So their guys have a side band called Operators, and it was an incredible show, but unfortunately, not a lot of people went out. But yeah, I mean, I know they're not from Buffalo, but that like, I mean, I'll go to any show I can in Buffalo itself. It's just hard. Like I'm just so old and like so tied up with my kid, and it's like, oh man, I live in Kenmore now too. It's like, do I drive like half hour in the city and then have 2 beers and then get pulled over by the Kenmore cops because they're like vultures?
The village of Kenmore cops suck.
I mean, it's just I don't know if it's worth it anymore.
Uber, man.
Yeah, I know. I could do that too. I guess it just gets so crazy. I don't know. I obviously now looking back, I just wish I had taken every chance I got because now I just miss it so much. But I try to get in the mix as much as I can.
Yeah.
Well, if you're free Saturday, Sarah and I are playing in Alden.
Yeah.
Promo.
The Hill,
place called the Hilltop.
the Hilltop in
It'll be
Alden. It's on
interesting.
Genesee Street in Alden.
We
It's like
sold-
it's like a big outdoor show. Yeah.
well,
Oh,
we
nice.
sold like 80
A
tickets.
needless promo.
No, that's good. See, I don't know. I didn't even know about Sportsman Tavern until like a few years ago, and that place is iconic. So it's just just dealing with Jeff and learning about where he plays. So I go out and see his bands when I can. But yeah, I mean, if there's venues like that, that's awesome. I had no idea.
Yeah, the Hilltop. It's a big grove, like outdoor grove with a
That's sweet.
stage out back, so plenty of room for social distancing and that
Good.
jazz. Yeah.
I was joking though. I don't expect you to come. We actually probably oversold tickets because they changed the maximum capacity. So
Really?
sorry everybody here. You can't come.
Well, not that we're trying to, not expecting you to come,
I'm
but
just being
you'll
funny.
obviously get let in if you want to come out to the Hilltop in Alden.
I need to be informed about this stuff. That's the stuff I want to know. I definitely feel out of the loop sometimes, even more so now there's a pandemic.
Yeah. What are you guys? So yeah, I guess the last question, unless anybody else has something. But
I got one last question. What
all
books
right.
are we reading to the kids tonight, Keith?
So she loves Where the Wild Things Are. Loves it.
Good choice.
I just read her The Giving Tree last night, which luckily she loves because I love Shel Silverstein. It's great. But I don't know if you've seen the book, The Giving Tree. On the back is a picture of Shel Silverstein. He looks menacing. So
I know.
I try not to show her that.
Just don't show her that.
Yeah, I was just going to mention that, Keith. That's the biggest disconnect back cover photo of an
Absolutely.
author on a kid's book. You're like, ah!
Yeah. So I didn't want to show her that, but yeah. So she's been into that, Where the Wild Things Are, and she loves, just like Paw Patrol or whatever Nickelodeon shows are on. I don't know, whatever. No classics.
Hey, I appreciate you doing this again.
Oh, my pleasure, man.
yeah, thank you so much. We won't keep you. Thank you so much for
Thank
joining
you guys
us.
for having me. It's been awesome. I appreciate it.
Hopefully, we'll all be able to get out and about, and we'll see you soon.
Good. Good luck, guys.
Thank you so
Thanks,
much.
Keith.
Bye.
Talk soon.
Bye.
That was awesome. Thank you
That was
to
great.
whoever hooked
Yeah.
us up.
Yeah,
I
that was
really
awesome.
personally
I mean,
appreciate it.